Liberty Tax is a hybrid company in which you can file your taxes online and you can also go into physical locations. They've included a few extras this year, but it wasn't enough to make it worthwhile to file your taxes online. So while we think Liberty Tax is out there trying to make things happen, it was a pass for us this year. Here's what you need to know about filing your 2020 tax return with Liberty Tax. Hey guys, it's Justine with the College Investor, investing and personal finance for millennials. So the first thing that you might want to know, is Liberty Tax free to file? And no, it is not. All tax filers, regardless of their tax filing situation, will pay the same flat rate for their federal return, plus an additional fee for their state return. So what's new in 2021 with Liberty Tax? Well, they definitely simplified their pricing structure so that everybody just pays that same flat rate. And I also noticed when I was online that they have a Liberty Tax app. So you can actually file your tax return through their app and upload different documents from your phone. So this is different and something new that I haven't seen offered from other tax software, so that's kind of cool. However, I don't know about you, but when I'm filing my taxes, I typically have a lot of forms and PDFs that I'm trying to track down, and trying to upload PDFs from my cell phone into an app just seems a little cumbersome, and I'd rather do it from my laptop, but maybe that's just me. Other extras include the Easy Advance loan, which means that you can get a loan for your tax refund in advance, but this comes with an unbelievably high interest rate and a financing charge, so you may want to avoid this altogether. They also are offering in-person double checks of your tax return, so if you're looking for pro support, they are also adding that on as an additional feature. All right, let's talk about pricing plans with Liberty Tax. Now, if you are a Rakuten user and you have the plugin installed on Google Chrome, you can activate 5% cash back, which will give you a little bit of money back on the price of the Liberty Tax software, but you're going to see a flat rate across the board. So this $44.95 for basic, deluxe, and premium. However, the deluxe and premium amounts looks like they've been slashed through, and so perhaps as we get closer to the tax deadline, this $44.95 amount could go back up to this original amount for deluxe and premium. So if you are wondering whether or not you got to pay for this stuff, yes, you do. So the $44.95 for everything, plus an additional $39.95 for the state return. So guys, I think this is kind of expensive. And it's actually really expensive for what you get once we jump inside of the tax software. Let's go ahead and do that. We'll hop inside the dashboard and I'll show you what I mean.
All right, guys, this is Liberty Tax. So you're going to go up to the right-hand corner of your screen, click File Online, and get started. All right, so to give you a quick rundown, this software is pretty simple on the inside, but the setup is pretty similar to what I've seen in other tax software. So you're going to have this left-hand menu with your options, federal and state taxes, your personal information, and then up at the top, you're going to see your expected or estimated federal refund and then your state refund. So as I was going through this, one of the things that I noticed was as you go through each of these sections, it can get a little tedious to walk through everything for the first time. So, for example, if I were to add a 1099 INT form, it does this scrolly thing where it's line by line. I have to go through each of these sections. So it's helpful so that you don't miss anything, but it's also really tedious to have to go through each of these sections one by one. So let me give you an example here. So as you can see, it's just kind of one by one asking you those questions, and you can't scroll through the one completed form. I almost wish that all of the steps were included so that I could scroll through and see everything in one screen, but it's not like that. Also, one thing that I was looking at is their help button. Let me fill this out first. Okay, if I were to go back to that interest form, now when I go back, I can actually see everything in one screen. I can scroll down. If I forgot to fill out anything, I can put that information into the blanks. But I don't like how you initially are presented with the information by going through it line by line. I just kind of wish I went to this screen first so I could fill in everything as I see it. Another thing that I'm not digging about Liberty Tax is their help section is really not that helpful. I mean, it's pretty basic here, and I'm going to have to type in, maybe I have a question on student loan interest. And of course, it's called student loan adjustment. But if I typed in interest, okay, it does actually go to it. So you can add a form, and then we're going to go directly into that form. Another thing about accessing the student loan interest form through this help section is that once I got to the screen, I actually don't have any prompts that say where to get this information from or what form number I need to be looking at. So if you didn't know that you had to get this from a specific form, then it can just be a little confusing if this is your first time filing taxes online or by yourself, where to know to get this information. So let's scroll down over to deductions and credits. One thing that Liberty Tax does provide is that they can either guide you through all of the sections, or you can do this self-guided experience where you can scroll through each of the sections and then fill in what's applicable to you. So maybe you had some qualifying education costs. You can add that in and skip the rest of this altogether. Or you can have Liberty Tax guide you through all of the sections, and this is going to be very tedious. But if you want more of that hand-holding experience, that would be the way to go. Now, as I was inputting different forms, including my W-2, which you can go back in and click on after you've completed a form, you can always go back through and see the exact information all in one screen. It's just whenever you put in a new form that it has you go through that step-by-step instruction, which I really don't like. But your refund amounts are going to update at the top if you have a refund, or if you owe money, that money is going to be estimated at the top of the screen for you. Liberty Tax is also updated with the latest tax law changes, so you don't have to worry about missing out on the recovery rebate credit, or now you don't need to report healthcare coverage. But if you have a specific form that explains your coverage, then this is where you would input that information. So while this information feels pretty straightforward to me, and the questions are okay, I get it, I understand, there's really no pop-up window or links to help me find more information if I was to have a question. So I feel like I'm kind of floating around in Liberty Tax by myself unless I use this help section, and then I've got to type it in and look it up that way. So I do wish there were some hyperlinks here, or at least some little information pop-up bubbles to help me get through some of these sections. Okay, now here's where the stimulus check portion comes into play. You are going to add in your stimulus payment that you received in 2020. So if you received the full amount, you'll go ahead and add that in. And then if you had a second stimulus payment, you'll go ahead and enter that amount in as well. After that, you'll go ahead and do your state return, in which you can add your information in. And so you'll want to pay attention to this because while we weren't required to report our healthcare coverage on the federal tax returns in the state of California, you do. Okay, once you have all that information for your federal and your state return, then you can do a return preview. This is nice. A PDF version. Let's see what it looks like. All right, so then you're going to see a complete tax return summary and all the documentation that's going to be submitted to the IRS for your return, which I find this really helpful to see before you submit your return, because this is actually the documents and the things that you are going to want to keep for your personal records. Then you click the blue File Now. Liberty Tax is pretty simple in a nutshell. Even with their extra features, I just find that inside of the software is a little lackluster.
So Liberty Tax actually wasn't that great on the inside. I just felt like it was a little clunky to use, and you could tell I had to go through each tax form line by line, and then when I went back in to edit that same form, then I could see the form in its entirety, and I felt like that was a little strange. Also, their help section was completely lackluster. I just felt like I was kind of on my own inside of the dashboard and didn't feel like the tax software was really telling me anything that would help me file my taxes correctly. Now, if you're willing to pay the Liberty Tax prices, then you're probably better off looking at something like H&R Block or TurboTax. Now, if you want something at more of a bargain, consider TaxSlayer or a completely free version like Credit Karma. If you're still on the fence on what tax software you want to use to file your 2020 tax return, then make sure to check out all of our complete tax software reviews with video walkthroughs at thecollegeinvestor.com.